In a scene from the fantasy adventure film, The Shadow, our hero approaches a mystical palace high in the Himalayas. Or does he? Actually, the actor never set foot in the Himalayas. He performed his role in a Hollywood studio. In fact, the hut and the entire foreground were also shot separately and added to the scene. And the palace itself was constructed far from the slopes of the mighty Himalayas. This is actually a tabletop miniature, carefully crafted and photographed by the wizards of special effects.
You call that a temple?
Welcome to the incredible world of big shots, those sweeping panoramas that provide the landscape for some of Hollywood's most unforgettable moments.
Where did that come from?
Coming up, we'll visit the cutting-edge studios of Matt World Digital. We'll see how beautifully rendered paintings, intricate miniatures, mechanized models, and computer images are cleverly combined to create show-stopping vistas for such movies as The Shadow.
Hey, Bobby, what the hell are you doing?
And we'll journey back to the golden age of Hollywood, when effects pioneers set old Chicago ablaze and envisioned an abandoned Washington, D.C. for Logan's Run. Join us as we explore big screen visions born from artists' imaginations and brought to life with blood, sweat, and acrylic paint. Next on Movie Magic. It's the 1930s in New York City. Lamont Cranston, alias The Shadow, uses his occult powers to battle villains in a crime-filled world.
You don't scare me!
To create this period adventure, the filmmakers relied on movie magic. Most of The Shadow was shot on the back lot of Universal Studios in Hollywood. Elaborate sets and vintage cars were used to place star Alec Baldwin in a stylized Depression-era Manhattan.
Did I say something?
But when the script called for a big screen vista, director Russell Mulcahy called on special effects artists to deliver the shot.
I love them because they allow you to make high fantasy, high adventure, high concept plausible. And the audience just go for a wonderful ride into a netherworld.
One of the film's pivotal scenes takes place 102 stories up on an observation deck of the Empire State Building. Mulcahy wanted an angle that would be impossible to shoot even from a helicopter.
Get me down from here! Get me down!
Special effects producer Allison Savage was responsible for delivering the shot.
So what you have to do is, of course, evaluate what can be done in the script, live action, what can't be done, and then figure out a way to do it. As an effects supervisor and producer, there are certain facilities that jump out for specific things. And Matt World, they are very, very good at integrating the realistic quality with the fantasy world, and there's really very few people that are as good as they are at that.
At Matt World Digital, the effects facility Savage chose to create the Empire State Building shot, veteran effects artist Chris Evans visually interprets the director's vision in a full-color rendering called a matte painting.
Matte paintings can generally add a greater sense of dimension and scope to films, because very rarely do films get to the incredible locations they want to. In a shot like the one I did of the Empire State Building, it was almost an engineering feat where I had to essentially remake the face of the Empire State Building from this imaginary point of view.
The matte painting is only one element of this complex shot. Since the distant background is a street at the base of the building, the Matt World team must construct it in miniature.
The road's looking good, but we need to get some of the oil streaks that go down the middle of lanes.
The automobiles are actually children's toys painted in car colors of the 30s. These models are attached to cables underneath the miniature street. A small motor pulls the cable, moving the tiny traffic down their lanes.
Okay, Mark, running this again.
A computer is used to control the cars, keeping them in a perfectly synchronized, pre-programmed traffic pattern.
I'm going to be running this back and forth, Mark. So, ready? Okay, rolling.
Of course, we are dealing with artwork that's painted, and what we're trying to do is introduce the movement that you would expect to see if you were really looking at a scene that existed in reality.
Craig Barron, co-founder of Matt World, is the director of photography responsible for getting this shot on film.
If you look into the streets of New York, you would expect to see the cars moving. It's very difficult to go out and photograph, say, 24 period cars from that particular angle and with the correct lighting that would fit in with our scene. So we have to recreate that in miniature.
You ready for this?
Behind the matte painting, a piece of plastic serves as a screen for a process called rear projection. A film projector casts previously shot footage of extras onto the screen, making it appear as if they are actually walking on the building's observation deck.
It seems to be lining up very nicely here.
Matte painting is difficult, and it is getting more difficult all the time because audiences are getting more and more sophisticated. We're constantly trying to push the envelope and make these things look as realistic as possible.
On screen, all of the pieces come together perfectly, and a dramatic scene atop the Empire State Building is brought to life for The Shadow.
No idea. Let's do it. Put me down. Put me down.
Coming up, we'll meet the legendary effects wizard who turned the Dallas Waterworks into a city of the future